There are moments in royal history that the public never gets to see. Moments that happen behind closed doors, in hushed corridors, in rooms where cameras are never allowed, and where the real business of the monarchy is conducted in whispers. For decades, the British royal family has been extraordinarily skilled at keeping those moments hidden. They smile for photographs. They wave from balconies. They attend garden parties and charity galas and state dinners, and they do it all with practiced grace, giving nothing away. But sometimes, the pressure behind the curtain builds to a point where even the most disciplined family in the world cannot contain it. And when that happens, the truth has a way of breaking through, not in a dramatic public announcement, but in a single gesture, a blocked request, a furious phone call, a cold stare held just a second too long across a crowded room. What happened inside the British royal family in the spring and summer of 2026 was exactly that kind of moment. It began with something as seemingly small as a wedding tiara. It ended with Prince William drawing a line that no one inside Buckingham Palace had expected him to draw, at least not yet. And the ripple effects of that moment are still being felt today. To understand how things reached this point, you have to go back further than the tiara. You have to understand who William is, who Camilla is, and why the relationship between the two of them has always carried a particular kind of weight that most people on the outside cannot fully appreciate. Prince William initially could not stand Camilla. That is not a rumor or a tabloid invention. It is something royal experts have spoken about openly for years. When William was a teenager, he watched his parents' marriage collapse in the most public, humiliating way imaginable. He watched his mother, Princess Diana, become the most beloved woman in the world while simultaneously being made to feel invisible inside her own marriage. He watched his father choose Camilla Parker Bowles, the woman who had been a shadow over his parents' relationship for years, and he felt that as a personal wound. He came to appreciate her steadfast dedication to duty over time, and the two eventually bonded over their spouses coping with cancer treatment. But appreciation is not the same as trust. Respect is not the same as warmth. And no matter how many royal engagements they attended together, no matter how many times they appeared side by side in official photographs, the dynamic between William and Camilla always had an undercurrent that the public could sense even if they could not name it. Charles has been battling cancer since 2024, and while his treatments were reduced in the new year, Buckingham Palace has not announced that the monarch is in remission. That context matters enormously to everything that followed. Because in the shadow of a sick king, questions about authority, succession, and who is really running things inside the palace have become more urgent than they have been in a generation. William, as the Prince of Wales and heir to the throne, has been quietly but consistently stepping into a larger role. King Charles has increasingly delegated duties to William and Kate, even granting them the historic authority to issue royal warrants, a power Kate became the first Princess of Wales to hold in over 115 years. That is not a small thing. That is a signal, a transfer of gravity from one generation to the next, happening in real time while the current king is still on the throne. Yahoo! AOL. And Camilla noticed, of course she noticed. According to insider briefings that emerged in June 2026, Camilla had come to believe that William had become far too eager to start calling the shots before his time. From her perspective, she is the queen. Charles is the king. And as long as Charles is on the throne, she is the one standing beside him, not William. Camilla reportedly accused William of treating King Charles' reign as little more than a formality, as if the current chapter of the monarchy were simply a waiting room for the next one. That is a devastating accusation, and it tells you everything about how the relationship between these two people had deteriorated by mid-2026. International business times international business times. The wedding of Peter Phillips and Harriet Spurling in Gloucestershire in June 2026 was supposed to be a happy occasion. Peter Phillips is the son of Princess Anne, the king's sister, and his wedding to NHS nurse Harriet Spurling was meant to be exactly the kind of normal, warm family event the royal family so desperately needed after months of difficult headlines. King Charles, Queen Camilla, Prince William, and Princess Kate all gathered at the ceremony in Gloucestershire, and what appeared publicly to be a routine family celebration was, behind the scenes, anything but. BTS Times. Ahead of the wedding, tension was already building over whether Harriet Spurling, a non-royal, should be allowed to wear a tiara from the royal collection. It sounds, on the surface, like an incredibly minor thing. a piece of jewelry, a formality of protocol. But inside the royal family, access to the jewel collection is about much more than aesthetics. It is about belonging. It is about who gets to be considered part of the family in the fullest sense, and who remains an outsider regardless of who they married. For Peter Phillips, who has always had a warm and close relationship with his royal relatives, the idea that his bride might wear a family tiara on her wedding day was a natural one. It was a gesture of inclusion, a way of saying, "You are one of us now." Inkle. According to reports from Closer magazine, Queen Camilla's team blocked the request, arguing that protocol meant Peter Phillips' bride should not be dipping into the family vault. And that decision, made not by the king himself, but by Camilla's team on Camilla's authority, was what lit the fuse. Inkle. William, 43, was reportedly furious that Camilla had effectively blocked Harriet and Peter from access to the royal jewelry collection. He had wanted his cousin and close friend to at least have the option of wearing a family piece on her wedding day. Peter Phillips is not a peripheral figure in William's life. He is someone William grew up with, someone who has remained a consistent and loyal presence through all the turbulence of the past decade. The close insiders said that in William's view, any access to the royal vault should be decided by Charles or by him as future king and a descendant of the royal bloodline, not by Camilla, who married into the family. That sentence is the key to everything. Not by Camilla, who married into the family. It is a statement that goes far beyond a disagreement about jewelry. It is a statement about legitimacy, about bloodlines, about who has the right to make decisions about what belongs to the House of Windsor. Inkle the News. William did not deny that he stepped in to challenge Camilla's decree. In his view, he was more than within his rights to allow his cousin access to the family jewels for his bride. He pushed back against her decision. He made his position known. And in doing so, he crossed a line that had previously been unspoken but understood, the line between a prince deferring to the current queen and a future king asserting his own authority over the family's legacy. The News. Following this, a source claimed, "It's now a moot topic. Camilla is still furious and accusing William of purposely undermining her and breaking protocol." The word "purposely" is telling. Camilla did not interpret William's intervention as an honest disagreement about what was best for Peter and Harriet. She saw it as a strategic move, a deliberate attempt to diminish her standing and remind everyone in the room that her authority over family matters has limits that William is increasingly willing to enforce. The News. In the end, Harriet sidestepped the dispute entirely, choosing a tiara owned by the Pragnell family, the jewelers who made her engagement ring, instead of borrowing from the royal collection. As one insider put it, her decision spoke more about her diplomacy than about either William or Camilla winning. But the fact that the bride had to navigate around a feud between her new relative and the Queen of England on her own wedding day says everything about how serious the situation had become. International Business Times. What happened next made it worse. The tiara dispute became framed by commentators as part of a broader contest over influence at the top of the monarchy. Earlier in the year, royal broadcaster Ian Pelham Turner claimed that Prince William had opposed King Charles and Queen Camilla, accepting an invitation to visit the United States as part of the 250th anniversary celebrations, citing concerns about the king's health during ongoing cancer treatment. William, the argument goes, was trying to protect his father. He was worried about what a long and demanding overseas trip would do to a man who was still battling a serious illness. But Pelham Turner alleged that William felt the trip could put too much strain on his father, and that he was overruled by Queen Camilla. Overruled. The future king, expressing a genuine concern about his father's health, was overruled by his stepmother. International Business, Times International Business Times. Whether that account is completely accurate is impossible to say from the outside. But the fact that it was being reported, being discussed, being taken seriously by royal commentators tells you something important. The idea that Camilla and William are in direct competition over the direction of the monarchy is no longer a fringe theory. It is the dominant narrative, and it is a narrative that both of them are aware of, which only makes the tension between them sharper. A source with close knowledge of the situation has said that William is furious that Camilla seems to care more about promoting herself and protecting her position than she does about protecting Charles. If true, that is an extraordinary accusation. It means that in William's eyes, Camilla's motivations are fundamentally self-interested. That her decisions about the U.S. visit, the tiara, the management of family affairs are all, at their core, about securing her own future inside the institution. And you can understand why William might feel that way. It has been previously reported that the Queen Consort is desperate to secure her future within the royal family and the perks she currently enjoys in the event of Charles' passing. A woman in Camilla's position has real reasons to think carefully about what comes next. When Charles is gone, she will no longer be queen. Her relationship with William, already strained, will determine what her life looks like in that next chapter. She knows this. He knows she knows this. And that mutual awareness gives every interaction between them an additional layer of calculation that neither of them can entirely ignore. Yahoo, Yahoo. A palace source explained that William's approach to managing family scandals has been described as brutal and strategic, and that it has, in the words of one insider, put the chills up Camilla. The source added, Camilla can see from how Kate and William have managed Andrew, Sarah, and the Sussexes that they are highly strategic. She's been cautioned against provoking them. AOL. That last line deserves to be read twice. She has been cautioned against provoking them. Someone inside the royal circle, someone with knowledge of how things work at that level, thought it necessary to warn Camilla that pushing William too far carries consequences. That is not the language of a family disagreement. That is the language of a power struggle. The situation has been further complicated by the fallout surrounding the former Prince Andrew and his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson, who were stripped of their remaining royal titles and are preparing to vacate their royal lodge home. One insider said the York saga had taken a heavy toll on Kate and Camilla in particular, and it is here that another dimension of the conflict becomes clear. From Camilla's perspective, the Waleses pushed themselves forcefully into an issue that was not theirs to control, and she feels that in doing so they weakened both her standing and the king's authority within the family. In other words, Camilla believes William and Kate have been overreaching, taking action on matters that should have been handled by the king himself, and that their interference has made the monarchy look like it is being run by people who are not yet supposed to be in charge. ALAL. Insiders tell OK? That open warfare has erupted between the Princess of Wales and Queen Camilla, which they say has become almost impossible to contain. Kate, who has already dealt with her own serious health crisis after her cancer treatment, now finds herself caught in the middle of a feud that she did not start and cannot escape. At a moment when Kate is already stretched emotionally and physically, constant jabs from Camilla are the last thing she needs. She views it as small-minded and unwarranted, particularly because she has never set out to challenge anyone's position. There is a strong temptation to confront Camilla directly, but Kate is deliberately holding back and trying to rise above it. But their simmering tension is disguising all-out war behind the scenes. There is a lot of plotting going on, and you can cut the atmosphere between them with a knife if they get in the same room. ALAL. According to insiders, the core of the disagreement comes back to King Charles and how much he should be doing while dealing with his health. The future monarch is reportedly concerned over his father. That is where all of this ultimately lives, in the unspoken question that no one inside the palace wants to say out loud, but that everyone is thinking about. How sick is Charles? How long does he have? And when the day comes that he is no longer on the throne, what will the monarchy look like, who will have power? And what will become of the woman who has spent the last 2 decades fighting to be accepted as queen? AOL. William's bold challenge to Camilla over the tiara was not just about jewelry. It was not even just about Peter Philip's wedding. It was a signal, sent clearly and deliberately to everyone inside the palace who was watching, that the Prince of Wales is no longer willing to defer indefinitely to a woman he believes is operating outside the boundaries of her proper authority. He was saying, in the most British way possible, that there are things that belong to the family by blood, and that those things are not Camilla's to control. Whether that position is right or wrong is almost beside the point. What matters is that William made it. He drew a line, and in doing so, he changed the dynamic inside the most powerful family in Britain in a way that cannot easily be undone. The palace will continue to present a united front. There will be more official photographs, more shared appearances, more carefully worded statements from communications aides about how the royal family remains close and committed to its duties. But behind those photographs, the battle for the future of the British monarchy is already underway. And at the center of it, 2 people who have never fully trusted each other are finally saying out loud what they have always believed. that only one of them gets to decide what happens next.